All right, welcome back to Six Figure Storyteller. We are going to be deconstructing the film Die Hard today, and this is a fun one. The interesting thing about Die Hard is that it was never meant to be anything more than a B-movie action flick, right? But it became one of the most successful action films in the history of filmmaking, right? Why is that? Because it hit every single one of these 10 universal plot points. The storytelling, even the character development for a B movie was on point. And that's why even today, it's such a great film that you can go back and watch again and again. So we are going to deconstruct, and I'm going to show you exactly where all of these 10 plot points are in the Die Hard film. The first one, that's the one we're going to be focusing on. And if you need a refresher on the 10 plot points, then go to the link in the caption and watch my video, which breaks them down just independently of any particular story so that you can get a refresher on them, okay? And remember, if you are interested in fiction writing tips, especially using psychology and subconscious creativity and aspects of spirituality to write highly emotional stories that your readers will absolutely fall in love with, make sure and give me a follow and hit that notification button so that you don't miss any videos, okay? So let's dive into the Die Hard plot points. First, we have the world before. Remember, this is the status quo before the inciting incident happens. NYPD detective John McClane lands in LA to patch things up with his estranged wife at the Nakatomi's Christmas party. Forgive me in advance if I don't pronounce that right. I have a really hard time saying it, even though I've seen this movie quite a few times. Then we have the intro of conflict. Remember that the intro of conflict is where they learn about things having to do with the central conflict, but it hasn't really affected them in a big way yet. So slick security consultants, those are in quotes, arrive in the lobby. John notices odd details such as automatic weapons and shut down phones, but he hasn't acted yet. Nothing's really happened, so he's very suspicious and he's just kind of going, this is strange. But again, it hasn't really ripped the rug out from under him in a big way. Then the call to adventure is where that rug gets ripped, right? The party is seized, he hears gunfire, escapes up the stairwell, and is now the only free cop in a skyscraper full of terrorists. So I want you to try and envision this story structure, right? We have him getting there, we're just establishing what's going on, who he is, the backstory about him and his wife being estranged, all of that, and setting up the situation. He's going to find her at her work, they're having a Christmas party, all of that. And then the intro is when he starts noticing things. We're getting some heightened tension, but nothing's really happened yet. And then boom, when the terrorists pull out the guns and take over everything and take the hostages, and it really begins, the coup begins, that is your call to adventure. Then we have the early story escalation. Now there can be a lot of these, right? Pretty much everything between the call to adventure and the turning point is going to be full of story escalations. And we have a lot of these in Die Hard because it's a very high action movie. So barefoot, outgunned, and cut off. John scrambles for shoes, radios, and help while Han's men hunt him floor to floor. Then we have the turning point, which is usually right around the center of the film, the midpoint. Instead of hiding, John rigs C4 on a computer monitor and blows up an entire floor, declaring open war. Yippee-ki-yay. So remember that in the early story escalation, they are running, they are hiding, they are barely keeping their heads above water. And this is very true of Die Hard and of John because it's an action film, right? He's hiding from the terrorists. He's running. He's trying not to be noticed by them. He's in panic mode. He's in survival mode, right? When we hit the turning point, he now is very visible to them. So he is, like it says, he's openly declaring war. And he's saying, I'm here and I'm coming after you, kind of a thing. So that is the turning point. And we have him going from reaction to action, which is very important. If you have a great idea for a story premise, but you don't know where you're going with it, if you're having a really hard time filling in plot events or finishing your current WIP, or if you're constantly worried that your story is boring or dragging or that your readers won't like it, then I encourage you to join the legendary Fiction Forge, my monthly membership for fiction authors. Inside, I will give you the complete A to Z blueprint for how to write highly emotional stories that your readers will absolutely fall in love with, no matter what your genre or tropes are. Want to become a widely read, highly paid master storyteller? Then join us in the legendary Fiction Forge and finally get that epic story that's been knocking around in your brain forever out to the world. Then we go to the late story escalation. Hans learns John's identity and nabs Holly. Now that's a big deal because Before, of course, she was always in danger because terrorists, right? But now they know specifically who he is and that she is his wife. And so she's in a lot more direct danger than she was in before. John is glass shredded, drained, and alone. Bleeding in a bathroom, John radios Sergeant Powell a goodbye, convinced he can't save Holly or himself. So you can see that this is a lot more dire, and he's starting to despair that this might not work out for him. So that's the late story escalation. Then we come to the climactic moment. This is the showdown in the executive suite, very famous scene. John confronts Hans and his last two henchmen. Now, the uber despair comes during the climactic moment, remember, and it's a time when he doesn't think he's going to win. This is where John ducks into a side room, and it really looks like he's lost and may have to surrender to the terrorists. But in the aha moment, he spots Christmas tape. He hides a pistol on his back, steps out laughing, and then shoots Hans and Eddie with his final bullet. So this is when he realizes how he's going to do this, and then he takes action on it. Resolution, of course, is that Hans falls to his death, Holly decks the reporter, and the McClanes leave together amid falling snow of bearer bonds. Okay, so once again, just remember that this movie was not supposed to be as big a success as it was. And the main reason that it was such a breakout success is because it had all of the elements of story. So I'm telling you, if you do this with your own books, if you hit all of these elements and do them well, your story cannot help but be successful. Your readers will not be able to help but love your story, right? And of course, this is just a story skeleton. You have to fill in all of the extra details, not only about what happened, but you have to do the characterization. You have to do, the villain characterization was really, really important in this particular film. Hans is very iconic. All of that, but this is where you get started. Now, if you are interested in learning not only more about this, but about all of those other things that I just mentioned, you can join our membership, the Legendary Fiction Forge. I give you the complete A to Z blueprint for everything you need to plan for your novel, from characterization, villain, character relationships, romance, plot, the whole 9 yards. We also do Zoom writing sessions in there for accountability. We have a great community. If you want to learn all of those things from A to Z, including how to edit your book as well, then join us in there. You can find the link below in the caption. Beyond that, go out and start noticing these in the stories that you read and the stories that you watch and absorb. Really, if you want to become a great writer and a master storyteller, you need to start thinking about stories in a deconstructive sort of way, pick them apart, and get to the point where you can see story structure, okay? So start doing that. Happy writing, and I will see you in the next story deconstruction.